Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nation. That's Barbecue Nation. I'm JT, along with my co host and co commander, Leanne Whippen, Hall of Famer, I might add, coming to you from our respective Turn It, Don't Burn It studios in Portland and Tampa, and anywhere that there is great barbecue. We would like to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. You can check them out at paintedhillsbeef.com. Well, there's an interesting story about our guest today. Um, Last fall, I went to Oregon State. I finished at Oregon State, I should say. And I did they had a big home game, football game against Stanford, the new stadium, all kinds of cool stuff. They had a barbecue contest. And our guest today, Tory Campbell, was one of the organizers of that contest. I didn't put two and two together, and that's my bad because for the last 2 years, I have won a package of Tory's Felton and Mary's barbecue sauces and seasonings, as you see behind him there, at a benefit golf tournament I play in. Okay. And I was looking at that box on my shelf and I thought, this would be a great interview. And so I called Tory, not knowing that not only did I talk with him and work with him at Oregon State, but I had met him, knew who he was, and all that. And I went to the name of the restaurant, the name of the pit was Campbell's from his grandfather, and we will get into that during the show. But I felt like such a dunce that I couldn't put two and two together. I understand any numbers above 10 I have problems with, but Tori, I apologize for that, but it is a funny story. But I will tell you that way back when I was in high school, my brother took me to Campbell's. If you're in the Portland area, it was off of 92nd and Powell there. And I had never had that type of barbecue before. Okay. It was the real deal. And your grandfather waited on us. And I remember I looked at the little menu and my brother told me what to order and he had a little card on the table about the sauces, right? And there was sweet, mild, blah, blah, blah. And then there was one like, and I don't remember what the phraseology was, but it's like, you better be sure you want to do this. And so I I said, I want to try your sauces. So he brought out these little samplers of sauces and he goes, what about the hot one? Oh yeah. He goes, you sure? And I said, yeah. And then about 5 minutes later, I knew why he said, are you sure? So, because it lit you up. It had great flavor, but it lit you up. So there's the primer to the show today. But anyway, Tori, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Um, Interesting background. Your grandparents came from Southern California, I believe, or Central California,
Yep, the Bay Area.
the Bay Area, and
Oakland.
then yeah, came up here. What prompted their move to get out of there?
It was pretty spontaneous. As the story goes, my uh, grandfather had a sister that lived in Portland for many years, and they loved to get in their VW van and just travel and just go.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story goes, they were intending just to go to Sacramento that day, and they kept driving. Made their way up here, spent some time with her that weekend, and turned to each other and says, "Do you want to move?" And yeah, let's do it. Bought a house that weekend, right off of 87th and Powell, and came back home and told their young adult kids at the time that were still living with them, you've got 90 days before we move to Portland, Oregon. At the time, and it's people didn't know,
Oregon.
yeah. Like, what? And obviously it's Portland, Oregon. And that's how it started. And their intent was to come here to retire, in some ways get away from the hustle and bustle of the Bay Area and their kids. But eventually everybody followed, with the exception of just one of their children. And I was included in that. A number of other grandkids as well eventually made our way up to Portland. And that was in the mid 80s.
Yeah. Now, did your grandfather have a restaurant in Oakland?
So he helped. He loved just to barbecue. So we always had a big smoker in his backyard in Oakland. And you don't have big backyards, so
right.
they may do. But I remember as a kid going over, and they always were smoking meats, a lot of different big pots on the stove. We did have family that actually did have a barbecue restaurant in Berkeley for, gosh, man, over 30 years now. I think it recently just closed, called Casey's Barbecue. And my grandpa was, and my uncles were really helpful in the kitchen in terms of helping my Uncle Vern dial in their smoked meats there. So he always tinkered, always helped, and loved to cook. And my grandmother loved to host.
Did he know how much work it was going to be once he actually opened up a restaurant? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think that for them, because they were retired, but still they obviously had some juice in them. And I
yeah.
remember he had living with them at that time. He sat down with my grandmother and my uncles who were there, and he put out a little bit of a little napkin or a drawing he had. He says, "I want to build a brick pit. We have a house on the corner on 87th and Powell that they had purchased as well." And he says, "This is what I'd like to do." Everybody said, "Let's do it." I think they were bored in some respects. My grandpa was definitely an extrovert, and they loved just to be around people. And it made sense for them to lean into something that they had done for many, many years in their home, to open it up and see what happens doing it in Southeast Portland. Not the most conventional place to do it at that time for a
No.
variety of reasons. And also, Portland wasn't known for being a strong barbecue city.
Mm-mm.
It's very strong now in terms of just a foodie city, but for sure back then. But they just believed, and we opened it up, and it was wildly successful over 18 years that we had it. It became a beloved institution, as you well know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know your grandpa wasn't shy.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I
I think it
probably
was more for him. I think my grandmother was tired of him at times, and just the restaurant was a good way for him to just go be him and be out extroverted and talking and enjoying.
yeah.
And she was a sweet host as well. I mean, she definitely could talk with you and love on you as well.
Yeah. No, I remember that. And you're right. Portland at that time was pretty vanilla as it came to restaurants. We had a lot of, Asian and Chinese restaurants, a lot of steakhouses, a lot of just, if you will, Americanized food, steak, burgers, what have you, chicken, that type of thing on the restaurants menus, but they weren't really known. If you went someplace and you ordered some barbecue like ribs, they were boiled or steamed and slathered in sauce. There wasn't really any rubs on them. And it was a messy, messy business. I know that because I've always loved to eat ribs. And so I think my first real taste of barbecue was at Campbell's back then. So I owe my addiction to you and your family.
I love that. I love that. That's
Yeah.
pretty profound. Admittedly, I think when I hear these stories, it brings a lot of joy to my heart and and helps me just grow my awareness of the unique space my grandparents carved out with the love for barbecue. I mean, how many people enjoyed it? I think for me growing up as a kid, I didn't always like spending like brisket going to school every day when I worked there. But now that I look back, I'm like, wow, they were really on to something. And we had a really special thing going.
Did um did you the family eat a lot of barbecue?
We did. Yeah. Yeah. I think, what's funny is that so much of what we ate and served at the restaurant, I grew up eating. So it just was always funny to me that, wow, the potato salad, the way we cooked the collard greens, the sauce, it was all the same. And we brought it to the restaurant and shared it with the folks.
I feel like there had to be some sort of influence though, because you don't go from California to Portland and have any, experience of being Kansas City, Texas, Memphis, whatever. Uh, But they obviously learned how to do it. But was there some sort of influence or something from that one of those territories that got them going?
Yeah. So my grandfather, he's originally from Texas, Cuero, Texas, a
Oh.
small town in East Texas. And my grandmother's from Arkansas. So they definitely had Southern roots, and, barbecuing was in their blood, right? I mean, it was just a
Mhm.
communal activity. And they also loved to cook too. So he really took it to the next level and really honed his craft over those 20 or 30 years, just cooking at home for friends and family. But they
Mm.
were known, as my great aunts and uncles would tell me, you would go to Felton and Mary's house to get some amazing food. You didn't always know what was in the pots, but you knew it was going to be some of the mystery meat. You didn't question them. I remember as a kid, one of my earliest memories, 3 and 4 years old, sitting at the kitchen counter on a little stool and watching my grandfather with his grinder grind and make sausages, and put it in the casings. And I just remember those smells and aromas. So that was really who they were as people outside of wanting to be small business owners in a restaurant. And the restaurant was an extension of their home.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sure was. I can vouch for that, Tory, because um I'd never forgotten that. I may have forgotten the exact date and time, but I still remember going there and walking in and kind of looking around. It wasn't a huge place, and went and sat at a table, and pretty soon, wasn't very long, your grandfather came over and the whole thing started, and we were probably in there for close to 2 hours just talking
It's
to him
crazy.
and eating, and they're probably at that, I don't remember, like I said, but it was a quiet day. It was probably before noon or something, if I remember right. And the rush hadn't come in yet. And so it was just me and my brother and talking to him and getting the great food and listening to him tell stories. And like I said, that sauce, whoo, brother, that you still make that sauce?
We do, yeah. So it's one of our featured barbecue sauces. Again, in starting this food company, I changed nothing other than taking out the corn syrup. Everything else is the same recipe. So we have the smoky brown sugar, which is a nod to more of a Kansas City style, that
Right.
sweet molasses flavor profile. Then the medium and the hot are similar flavor profiles, more of a Texas style. So you get the strong kind of tomato paste notes and the cumin and garlic, and then the heat. And we don't really like to build it up like, oh, it's hot, extra habanero. It's just hot, But as you
Yeah.
noted in your opening, it has a great flavor. And I think that was always important. My grandpa just didn't want to make it hot for the sake of being hot. And,
Well, he got my attention. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Tory Campbell from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods in Portland. And Tory's also, like I said, a OSU guy, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Barbecue Nation. I'm JT along with Ms. Whippen, Hall of Famer. If you'd like to follow us on any of the social media stuff, feel free to do so. Between the show, Leanne, and myself, I don't know how many different platforms we have, but we have a lot. And then you can, if you can't hear the show on the radio, it's on every podcast platform out there. Just go to Barbecue Nation or Barbecue Nation JT. I know it changes on a couple of them, but you'll get the right one. And follow us on Facebook and all that stuff. We're talking with Tory Campbell from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods here in Portland. I don't do too many shows, even though I live here. I don't do too many shows about restaurants and creators here in Portland, but I think you've got such an interesting story in your family. Leanne and I are both very much into family stuff. So that's very cool. But I want to talk real quick, Tory, about your work at OSU, which is where I originally met you. And you're also a pastor. So I'll try to keep my language kind of cool
His
today.
resume is very large.
It is.
And
It
very
is.
diverse, I might say. When I was reading it, I was extremely impressed. I was like, how does one person do all this? So talk about that.
yeah, I mean, I have lived quite a few different lives. I think the through line to everything that I've done, whether it be pastoring for almost 15 years. I'm no longer pastor now, but that was definitely a part of my life early, and still is so much of who I am in terms of love and care for people and faith and spirituality. Entrepreneurship has always been in my blood. And so there was a number of years where I worked in economic development, at one point being the director of economic development for the city of Portland. Really enjoyed that work up until COVID. And then I made the transition just over 3 years ago back to my alma mater, Oregon State University, really with the desire to want to connect with the next generation. So I did some instructing work with the College of Business on entrepreneurship for a year and a half or so. And then my main job was working with the Alumni Association, where I'm the senior associate executive director of experiences. Very long title, sometimes unnecessary. But the main goal there is I work with a wonderful team, and we create experiences to reconnect alumni back to the university. Everything from nostalgic homecomings to really helping them connect with the next generation of Beaver alum with career mentorship opportunities. So we have over 200,000 alumni and growing. So it's fun work. And that's how I actually connected with Jeff initially, was I invited him to be a part of a tailgating experience that we did, as he mentioned earlier, against Stanford. It was on Veterans Day weekend. And I thought nothing better to honor our vets and to create a real dope experience than to bring Beavers together with barbecue and beer. And so we had a wonderful, it was our inaugural event, and I thought it was a great success, had a good turnout. I think we had 5 barbecue pit masters actually come on site, spend the night, and cook through the night. We had Painted Hills donate brisket, Carlton Farms donated pork belly, and they did their thing. It was magical. Jeff showed up the next day and did a podcast from there. Music, we had beer from Trails to the Land from Oregon Agricultural Trust. So really a fun experience that brought a ton of people together. And I think we want to do it again this coming year. And as you know, like you said, Jeff, barbecue is synonymous in so many different regions, but the Northwest, you don't really always think about it. But there is a strong community here that loves barbecuing, as you well know. And so we were grateful to be able to host that event this past fall and look forward to doing it again.
That was a great party.
Yeah, it was.
It really was. I didn't get to quote unquote party too much because I was busy, but looking out at it and watching all the people and talking to you and Will and the other guests we had on the show, that was excellent. But to see the enthusiasm of the people that attended, and of course, then we womped Stanford, which was really good. But and I got to go up in the skyboxes, so that was really cool too.
Glad you enjoyed that.
I did. I had a heck of a good time up there. But really, that had been the first time I'd been back to campus in years. And so, of course, the renovation of Research Stadium was new, but even the Alumni Center and the offshoot of the bookstore there and those different things, the plaza, they've got a really cool plaza out in front of the stadium. And the marching band kind of warms up there and comes through there. And then they have some not so efficient civilian marching bands go through there playing their instruments and stuff. But it's really a great setting and everybody just had a wonderful time. And I know by the time I got done with the show and got down to the barbecue folks, there wasn't too much left. It was pretty picked over, which is what you wanted. But I was like, I think I got 2 samples. But that's okay. I get enough barbecue like that. But you think OSU would ever consider putting together a program like Texas A&M does on their, they do a short course on brisket, cooking brisket. A&M does like that. I could see OSU doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they have a couple great programs already within the College of Agriculture. They actually have a meat lab on campus where they walk students through who are wanting to pursue that type of field, and they show them how to cut up the meat. It's really fairly sophisticated. And then they even get to a point where they sell that meat. You can buy it just in the public. It's open to the public. And I just think that was great. They actually helped us in curating some of the meats that we got from Painted Hills and Carlton Farms. But I definitely think that there's more opportunity because we are an agricultural college through and through to tie in more ways to associate kind of the farm to table experiences that we have. So.
Yeah, I think that's becoming kind of an it thing, if you will, not just in Texas, and up here, but around the country. You see more colleges, if you will. The ag programs are kind of blowing up because not everybody wants to stare at a computer screen all day in their career. And so there's more people going, I don't want to call it backwards. It's not backwards. It's going into a different genre and going forward. And then the cooking and the culinary aspect of that is really growing too, is what I see.
Definitely. Yeah. There's a Oregon Classic Foods on campus where they have a line of products that they include students in, from cheeses to ice creams to smoked meats. that they sell. And again, it's that connectivity of farm to table, incorporating ag, incorporating business, all the different elements that you'd want in a viable ecosystem that really showcases the university's role, not only in our state's economy, but regionally as well, and even internationally. So it is a cool way to bring all those together. And I think the barbecue that we did for the veterans was just another great expression of that. So I'm glad that you're able to come, and hopefully we continue it. We talked about, man, could this be the beginnings of doing something locally where it actually is an official cook-off that we bring in some big things to be a part of. So
well, you're just gonna have another full-time job, I think.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I want to say before I go, shout out to Mike White. Mike is a good friend, and he helped me pull that together. He does that as his 9 to 5 in terms of helping curate barbecuing competitions here in the West.
Oh, that's great.
The West, Best Damn Barbecue Sauce is his company. Really, really good guy. And so
yeah, he is. He is. We're going to take another break. We're going to be back with Tory Campbell from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods and Oregon State University. Go Beavs. Anyway, Leanne and I and Tory will be back right after this. Don't go away. Yeah, I'm telling you, Leanne, I did not know what to expect. I hadn't been there in years.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it.
And came back, and I was like, got home, and I was just like chatty Cathy to Shelly for an hour. Just like that. So here we go. Hey, welcome back to Barbecue Nation. I'm JT, along with Leanne Whippen. We want to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef. You can go online and go to Painted Hills Beef. They've got an online store. You can order not their whole line there, but they've got a lot of stuff and excellent beef and wonderful people. So go to paintedhillsbeef.com. And also pig powder, best rub on the planet. So I'm told, and I will tell you that it's pretty dang good. And of course, pig powder was developed by Leanne's father, Trim Tab. Jim, for his,
I had a team reach out to me, and they're from the Midwest, and they told me that they knew about pig powder. They tried it, and ever since then they use it on their pork, and they win first a lot of the time. He gave me all the awards that he's won with it. He goes, I feel like it's the best kept secret, but it really shouldn't be a secret.
No, it's good stuff.
It's really good.
It's very good stuff. I've actually been experimenting with it, and I used it in some stuffed mushrooms the other day. I had some sausage and put the pig powder in there, and then, filled the mushrooms and baked them and all that stuff for a football party we had here. It's very well rounded. So go to pigpowder.com, and Miss Whippen will personally make sure you get an autographed picture of her. So there you go.
Oh, that was a big one. You got me into trouble on that one.
I did. We're talking with Tory Campbell today from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods, and also from OSU, Oregon State, not Ohio State. What have you learned, Tory? I mean, that's kind of a very broad question, but since you started Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods, Leanne is in the food business. I used to be in the rubs and spice business. It's a steep learning curve at times. And so what have you learned, and what has been your greatest achievement so far, and also your greatest obstacle?
Great. I would say the couple things that I've learned. One is the value of building off of the shoulders of giants that come before me. So even though I founded our food company, my grandparents were the original ones that really brought all of these amazing flavors and our ethos of our company, our love for people, for community, for urban farming before it was all the rage. And starting that barbecue restaurant was their expression of that. And I also learned, like, be bold, right? They stepped out in retirement to do this and be vulnerable with an idea and see what happens. And I think the other thing was my aunt, for about 10 years of the restaurant, really was the driving force of the growth of that business. And seeing her just be scrappy, be brilliant in who she was, really modeled for me so much of the things that are benefiting us and helping me continue to lead our food company. So in high school, I saw her taking these bottles, like let's bottle these up, the sauce, and let's sell it. And we started selling it in stores. And I remember doing demos. And so for me, even though I've started the company, this is not like, oh, I'm the originator of it. I'm building off of what has been now 3 generations, and now my kids participate. They've never met their great grandparents, but they know who they are in many ways because of the foods and the story that we say. And I think that to me is huge. It is totally okay, and actually is a great treasure to be a part of something that's 3 or 4 generations old. And I think that shows legacy, that shows heritage, and a level of connectivity that I feel very rich in. I think other lessons is, even though barbecue is a very saturated market, as you know, I'm sure you know,
True.
there's still room for products that come and have a really important original story, and showcase the way. I mean, I often tell people our barbecue sauce is the ingredients you have in your kitchen cupboard, but it was just the way in which my grandpa harmonized them that there's some different flavor notes and a different approach. And so I think when people taste it, you have to get them to taste it because it's such a saturated market. Everybody and their mama already has their own go-to barbecue sauce.
Oh yeah.
They buy, it's technically not their barbecue sauce until they doctor it up. So everyone does that. And so once we allow people to taste it, people go, wow, there is something unique about this. And I just love that. I think, wow, as much as I thought no one would want to taste it, no one would be interested, there's still room. I kind of tell people in the same way that how many love songs have been started in the key of C or E, right?
Yeah.
And yet there's still love songs being created in those same notes. It's just how you put it together that makes the difference. I would say our biggest accomplishment, and then I'll get to our biggest struggle. Bigger accomplishment was probably this last summer, where Burgerville, which is a local burger chain here in the Pacific Northwest, called us up and says, hey, the Chef Becky, she loves our barbecue sauce, our smoky brown sugar. And she says, we'd love to pair your barbecue sauce with our Walla Walla onion rings, which is what we have annually during the month of August. And so we had a Walla Walla barbecue cheeseburger, and they featured our barbecue sauce. And that was huge for us. I think we've done a lot of cool things over the years, but I think anytime you can partner with a great partner like Burgerville, as you know, like that validation, and
Yeah, oh,
also
yeah.
help us to continue to help us make strides to not just be in retail or online where you can purchase, but now in food service, which I think for us is a expand and grow our business. I would say that the biggest challenge is being patient. I think it's just being patient with the ideas you have and seeing them through. Our company this year is 10 years old, and there's so many things that we want to continue to be and grow into, and yet you have to be patient and all of that. And so I think that to me is oftentimes the greatest challenge is
Sure.
knowing you might have a solid idea, but it might take a few years for it to really come to fruition, and being patient to walk and see it through.
It's not going to happen overnight. Leanne
sir.
and I can attest to that, both personally and professionally, seeing things, because in this show, I don't know, Leanne, how many, a dozen a year, we talk to folks that have created a rub or something, and they're always very kind, and they send it to us, and the product is fine. It's very good. But it's that shelf space that they got to, elbow their way into and then stay on top of it the whole time. That's the hard part of the business.
It's patience, but it's also tenacity at the same time. You can't sit there and wait for it to happen. It's just too competitive. You have to, like you said, you were out sampling, and you've got to get it in people's mouths. And then you know how word travels, and it goes like that. I mean, Bad Byron, he started really in retail before anybody else that I know of, getting his product butt rub out there, and he's turned it into a kingdom. And he hasn't sat back. He just keeps going with it. And it's so important. But yeah, patience is right, because a lot of people think they're going to make money out of the gate, and they find out that they aren't, and then they lose it. They lose their drive, and then it just goes by the wayside. So the ones that are making it, it's not only it's the whole ball of wax. It's marketing, it's everything else. But yeah, you do have to be patient.
Oh yeah,
right
I thought I was going to light the world on fire, and I got some big accounts right out of the gate. And then within about 2 weeks, I learned a really valuable lesson, because I was getting calls from these accounts. They were retailers, and they would say, I want 6 bottles, not 6 cases, 6 bottles of, I had a rub called Happy Camper Kid Spice. We want 6 kids. We want 2, uh, running iron, which was a spicy one. We want 3 steak blends. They wanted all these busted cases, and I was just one guy. And so I was in the back room of my studio putting these together and then having to drive 50 miles or whatever one way to get them there. And after a while, because I was doing radio and TV at the time too, still, and I had to give up because I couldn't fulfill them.
Right.
I couldn't, there wasn't enough time in the day for me to do it. And so I backed out of it. But I did it for a couple of years, and I don't think I lost more than 50,000. I don't know.
Wow.
But no, I'm joking. I'm joking. But I just there just wasn't enough time. And as Leanne said, I not getting on a soapbox here, but I think you have to have the tenacity to stay with it. Ship those what we would call broken cases, and get them out to people and follow up on it. And I just didn't. I didn't have the time.
So I feel like you're an expert in small business development. And what are your feelings on how social media plays into your small business? How important is it? And marketing, like if you're putting together a marketing plan, what do you think are the first 3 things that should be at the top?
Yeah. Marketing, there's so many ways that we can engage our ideal customer. And I think that's the trick. I would say first, as a business owner, is knowing your market and dialing it down. I think you can oftentimes gain more traction with a solid 1,000 followers who buy your stuff regularly and love you than you can by spending $10,000 just shooting everywhere on every platform, on every channel, trying to get traction. And I think oftentimes that's the tension for small business owners, is they don't have enough time to have a full-blown marketing strategy. But what they are good at and should be good at is telling their story, identifying their audience, and serving them well, both with their product, but also keeping them engaged and finding ways to celebrate, to share their story. People want to be brought into the growth of your business. They don't always want you to show up perfect. They love the journey. They love this highs and lows. They feel connected and drawn. And so to you, when you are able to articulate that. And so I always encourage small business owners, find at least one platform that you feel most skilled at, and your audience is oftentimes the most at, and nurture those relationships. And if you can build community, they eventually become, as you know, Leanne, your champions. And they tell your story better than you can. And I think oftentimes that tends to be more manageable for business owners. But social media is a viable place to do it. But you can't do Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. You can't do all of them together. You probably can choose 1 or 2 and find the one. And I'd also say, as we were talking earlier, so much of being a successful business owner has oftentimes very little to do with making good barbecue sauce, as much as is learning to build a healthy company, a healthy business. So infrastructure and systems, things that help you both accelerate your work and not drive you, mad because you're doing everything last minute. And so a lot of times with marketing, there are ways you can set up strategies that work for you in automated ways that are still giving authentic stories, but at a cadence where you're not every day having to put something up on social media. You can spend 2 hours on the day, pull together 5 stories, and then schedule them to show up over the next week and a half. I think that's a way to compress your learning and also help to, I think, accelerate people knowing about your story and feeling like content is frequently showing up, but you're not wasting hours every day trying to think of something new.
There you go. We got to take another break, but I want to pick that up on the other side. We're talking with Tory Campbell here from Felton and Mary's and OSU, and Mr. Whippen and I will be right back. Welcome back to Barbecue Nation. We want to thank the Oregon Crab Commission for supplying Leanne with enough crab to keep her happy for about 20 minutes. Actually, they supplied us with a lot of crab, but she
ate all of it.
Ate all of it. The end of the shoot, at the end of the day, she'd had this little bag, and the bottom of it, she was hiding these bags of crab legs. This is the story. So. go back to the hotel, and she'd send me pictures from the hotel room where they had dinner, and they used like the toilet paper roll as a vase or
Vase.
something. Yeah, yeah. We'll release those
Love
to the
it.
public someday, but
Yes.
those are pretty good. But you can go to OregonCrabCommission.org and find out more about Dungeness crabs. Great stuff. I want to follow up on what you were talking about. We got a few minutes left here, Tory, as far as the marketing aspect. From the manufacturer side, and they hire influencers, and Leanne knows some of my thoughts on those, a lot of them, and a lot of them are good and they work, and it's kind of inexpensive vis-a-vis versus conventional marketing for the manufacturers to do that. But sometimes the manufacturers will kind of insist what you were just talking about. You can't hit all of the different platforms continually. There's not enough time in the day to do it, because you've got to constantly be creating new content. You can't put the same stuff out there 15 times in a row. Nobody's going to pay attention. So in your experience, what platforms do you work with the most?
Yeah, I would say the two that we spend our most time on is our newsletters. So, which we have a growing list of followers. Either they come to our website, want to follow the newsletters, or they've purchased a product. And that's a way that we continue to tell our story. We find that email still, as much as they feel old school these days, they still look a responsiveness that is unmatched. And then second to that is Instagram. I think for us, that's just been a platform that's easy to work with, and we integrate it. When you post something, you can post it on Instagram. It can also go to Facebook as well. And so I think it's more about integration and knowing where you feel the most comfortable with your platform, and then using that to springboard off to a few others that are automatically integrated into it.
Right. No, I agree, because
I'm of the same belief. I'm an Instagram person too, and it goes right to Facebook. And people say, "Well, why aren't you doing TikTok?" Well, because I'm only one person, and I just like to focus and give my all to one rather than little bits here and there. I think it has a better response.
Yeah, see, I'm a twit guy. X, you know. But I also I do the Facebook, and then sometimes that gets, because I basically promote the shows. I don't have a product anymore other than the media stuff that Leanne and I do. But I know that you put it on Facebook, and it'll, or LinkedIn, because I'm more on the business side of things. And so you can get those, and those spread out pretty well too. But, I'm not a TikToker. I'm not a Reddit or whatever they are. I mean, I think there's a limit, like you said, Tory, to what you can do and do efficiently and well and get your message out there.
And also trust that people will find you, right? I think you might have someone that has those 6 platforms on their phone, but if you're consistent, as you said, Leanne, they'll find you. And I think that's something we have to trust. So our work is just be consistent, and people will.
So where are you headed now with Felton and Mary's? I mean, you've got a base, you're expanding that base, but if we had you back a year from now and said, Tory, what have you done this last year? What's your goal there?
Yeah, it's great. I would say our goal would be to continue to make our products available in retail, which we have a pretty good footprint in Oregon, but we want to expand that. So we have aspirations and plans to grow that into hopefully Washington this year. Also food service. I mean, food service is great. Just to be honest with you, from a standpoint of like labor, it's much nicer, So in 2 weeks, the Beaverton School District will be using our Smoky Brown sugar for one of their meals during the month of February. So that's like 54 schools. That's a great account. And I think it's those kinds of relationships we want to continue to build. Burgerville, because we were so successful last year, they wanted to sell 52,000 hamburgers in 45 days. It was a new product to market featuring our barbecue sauce and those Walla Walla onion onions, we ended up selling 53,253.
Oh, you just made
Yay.
But who's
it.
counting, right? You know,
Right.
so as you know, a product like that, one, it met the goal and exceeded it, and they typically will want to run it back a few more years. So that's another relationship that we want to continue to nurture and grow. So I think for us, food service is a place. 10 years into it, we've loved the markets and doing farmers markets here locally, and we'll continue to be present in those as well.
Excellent. I mean, I got to tell you, I had lunch yesterday at Burgerville. Now I didn't. Your burger was off the menu, obviously at that point, but Burgerville's kind of a mainstay around here.
It is. Yeah.
We have to drive 15 miles to get to one, but it's worth it. It's a great company. And no, I didn't share that with Leanne because I thought she did well enough on the crab when she was here. So.
Who manufactures like all of your sauces and rubs?
Yeah, so we have a couple local co-packers that work with us from the beginning, which has been great for us. So that allows me to sleep at night. So,
Yeah,
and then
that's
we
good.
also are fortunate. Portland has a really cool food ecosystem. So we have a number of distributors that are local that get our products to the stores. Also, New Seasons and Market of Choice, as an example, they really do a great job of creating really viable on-ramps for local food companies to get started. So you'll drop it off at, say, Market of Choice's main store, and then they ship it out
Right.
through their Mojo program to all their stores throughout Oregon. So I think it's those things that I know that we really are fortunate to be in a food ecosystem here that supports small businesses in that way. But I've learned how to do distribution, and as you know, you got to have a PhD in that stuff after a while. You're doing enough. So
yeah. I actually worked when I was doing it. I worked with Market of Choice and I worked with the Made in Oregon stores. Those were my two big accounts. I had a bunch of smaller satellite accounts, but and they were great to work with. They were absolutely great. So if you're local and you're listening to the show and you want to get in the food stuff, make sure your product is good enough to get into a Market of Choice or a New Seasons. They're higher end stores, but it's well worth it. The products there, their whole line in their stores is really, really good. What do you think your grandpa and your grandmother would say right now, Tory, looking at what you're doing? We got about a minute left here, but I wanted to kind of get your take on that.
Yeah, I think they would say, keep doing it. You got it, son. You got it. That's what they would say. Both being able to honor their way of living and traditions, but also making good on being innovative to continue to bring a product that's over half a century old into new spaces in ways that they couldn't imagine. That cars deliver food to your house and everyone's okay with that. Yeah, that's how it works, So you can go online, the intranet. What is that? Amazon, they have your product now. Yeah. We want to be a national company. Okay, go baby, keep doing it.
Yeah.
I bet your grandpa, wherever he is, he's still talking.
That much is true. Yeah. The angels in heaven are getting an earful of him. He spins yarn like nobody's business. So
yeah, I got up to St. Peter and he put his arm around. He said, "Let me tell you about our brisket."
Exactly.
He did that.
Peter, were you on that? I love it.
How can people find your products, Tory, real quick?
Yep. Our website, feltonandmary.com, is the best place to start. And from there, you can order and also find products that might be close to where you live.
Okay, very good.
Awesome.
Tory Campbell, everybody, from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods, Oregon State University. Great guy. Again, my apologies. I didn't remember who you were when I called you up to do this interview. I was like brain dead. But get out there and try some Felton and Mary's. And Tory's going to stick around for after hours. He has no idea what he's stepping into there, but we'll get him squared away. So for Leanne and myself, we'll be back next week with another edition of BBQ Nation. And remember our motto, turn it, don't burn it. Take care, everybody. Cool. All right, big guy, are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
I really appreciated this. It's cool.
No problem.
Great.
No problem. You're an excellent guest.
I knew you were going to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to After Hours here on BBQ Nation. I'm JT, along with Hall of Famer Leanne Whippen. some people might say he says Hall of Famer every time. If you knew what it took to get into the Hall of Fame, Leanne deserves those accolades every time I mention her name.
A lot of sweat and tears.
Yeah. But I don't call her up and go, hey, Hall of Famer. I save it for the show. So I call her other names when we're just talking on the phone or whatever. And they're all nice. They're nice. They're nice like that. But like I said, we have Tory Campbell with us from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods. Quick backstory there. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Golf tournament, a benefit tournament I play in Portland every year. 2 years in a row, I've won the sauces, and I knew about Campbell's, his grandfather's and grandmother's restaurant, and then I met Tory at Oregon State last fall, and I took my slow ass brain a while to put all 3 together, but here he is. So, and he has been kind enough to submit to the after hours abuse. So we thank you for that. All right. Let's start out with something easy here. If Leanne declared you supreme ruler of barbecue for one day, what would you as supreme ruler decree, Tory?
That all people cook their slow smoked meats with apple wood.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, I
That's
like
fair enough.
that.
That's fair enough. Do you remember what the first thing was you ever grilled, barbecued, or smoked?
Oh man, that's a good
Not
one.
what your grandpa did, but what you did.
Yeah, what I did. Yeah. I think I modified like a little hibachi, little grill in college because I was hankering for it. So I like put I modified it so all the heat would be on one side.
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
propane and put foil and
Indirect.
tried to protect the meat. And I think I grilled some chicken that day
That's great.
in our apartment complex. And people were like, "What is that smell? That is so good." And it was me. I was fighting it because the temperature was horrible, but I really craved barbecue that day.
We did that. We had a little there was a walkway, and we my senior year lived on the second floor. And those apartment complexes aren't there. I looked for them last fall when I was down there. They're long gone. But we had a covered walkway, and I had a little hibachi out there that people would actually have to kind of walk around because we were the second apartment on the floor, and there was like 20 of them on that floor, and they'd have to walk around it. But I would cook out there. Made a lot of friends that way.
Sure.
Okay. So if we put your skills, your barbecue skills, your cooking skills, your marketing skills, got to put them all together now, Tory. If we put your skills to music, what would the music be?
Oh man. I would be like some Thelonious Monk jazz. It'd be very frenetic. It'd be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You could tell that that I'm skilled, but you can see there's a lot of art. Like I don't know where this brother's going with it, but I think it's gonna turn out okay. And
I got it. I got it. I like that. I like that. How much barbecue do you eat on a regular basis? And use a scale from 1 to 10.
I would say we're probably at a 7. So obviously the Northwest, the weather is not always conducive, but we push through.
Yeah.
We try to barbecue year round. That's just to it. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you consider yourself a barbecue pitmaster, a master at any level?
I would say master in that I have able to own what our family did and what we offered.
Yeah.
I don't do competitive barbecuing. So in that regards, I wouldn't say that defines what mastery means to me, but knowing what my grandfather delivered consistently, how my grandmother plated it, I believe I have that and own that.
Sure. What's the dumbest thing that you've ever done with a grill or a barbecue? True confessions here, Tory.
Yeah, I mean, just the classic keeping it on way too long to, trying to make some burn ins and they just were burnt. Just all the juice and it's just it mush and no nothing to it. Like that was a little too long, brother. You need to take
Yeah.
it off an hour earlier. So I think something like that.
It's kind of like you put something on the grill and you go in and you're watching the football game or something and you kind of forget about it,
Mm-hmm.
And by the time halftime comes around, you're like, oh my God. You go out there and it's like this
Yeah.
charred, nasty, nasty looking thing. What's the worst thing about owning your own food business?
I think you're always in the back of your mind thinking about the what ifs, right? Because this is there's food safety. You work with a co-packer, but there's just always things that could happen, with food
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and transportation of it, shelving, And so I think that that oftentimes is difficult. It's never just sell it and you're done. There's
Mhm.
always that you have to be conscientious. Obviously, you keep your insurance high.
Yeah.
And you want to think about the end user and what their experience is with your product. And so I think that's for me oftentimes the most frustrating. And the thing that in all of it, obviously there's just the grind of business, right? Making sure things pencil.
Right.
I mean, that's just life. But I think that piece oftentimes tends to be more looming and ominous at times.
Well, when you're doing whether it's sauces, rubs, whatever, it's not really an inert object.
Mhm.
It's a consumable. And
Yeah.
so there's always that little, if you allow me, gut twist when you're doing that and you're putting it out there to the world. I think as time goes on and you become more and more confident, some of that apprehension goes away a little bit, but it's still there. Deep inside, it's still there. If you were going to tell somebody what's good about barbecue, why should people try barbecue that have never tried it before? And honestly, there are people that have never tried barbecue before, or they've had something that's prepackaged out of Safeway that is not even close to barbecue.
I would say two things. The first is barbecuing as a culinary skill. As you know, it opens up so much more
Mm-hmm.
you can enjoy in terms of meats. I think there's so many cuts of meats that people just pass over because they're like, it's too tough. I've never heard of that. What would you do with that? And it's something that's really beautiful, that indirect heat, low and slow for 2 or 3 hours to tenderize even the toughest cuts of meat, open you up to things you have never even thought were palatable and enjoyable. I would say for me, that's the first and foremost thing. And I think second is the communal aspect to it. There are very few foods that are really about inviting people over to hang out.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to have it ready for them when they get there and eat and then they leave. But barbecue oftentimes is you come over, I'm going to put it on, or it's on right now, but we got 2 more hours, 7 more hours. So let's get out the Biz Wiz, the Uno. Let's open up some suds. Let's enjoy life together. And I feel like that's another real cool element to barbecuing that I know our family has always loved. And it is a huge thing for people.
Absolutely. Do you describe yourself as corn-fed or grass-fed?
Oh man, I don't know what to say about both of those. That's a good one. Can you define those? I feel like I'm doing on spelling bee. Can you put that in a sentence, please?
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's put it in a question. You're corn-fed if you are blank.
Oh man. Almost corn-fed feels like you really from the country, perhaps, like that would be my guess. But I would say I'm probably grass-fed just because I've grown up in an urban environment. But I don't mind getting down on some corn because of so much of what my grandparents modeled for me, of like the beauty of rural community, agricultural life.
Yep.
But I'm a city boy.
Okay. Boxers or briefs?
Briefs.
Okay. Have you ever cooked in a thunderstorm in your underwear? Now, I didn't write these specially for you. This is the weekly
man
challenge.
Oh, I haven't. I've never done that. I've chased a raccoon out of my backyard trying to kill my chickens.
I bet you that was a hell of a sight.
It was. My wife's like, "Get in the house. You don't have anything on." I'm like, "They got my chicken. I gotta get it."
We should hook him up with Chris Lilly. So they
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What barbecue skill or culinary skill, Tory, took you the longest to be comfortable with and master?
Yeah. It was definitely going to be that brisket. I think just the time that it takes, and there's some critical moments where you have to be mindful of. You get the bark, you want to tenderize it, whatever, let it stay, let it take it off, the importance of taking it off and letting it rest, like the chemistry and all those things,
Mhm.
just season it, put it on, 7 hours are done, 12 hours are done. Like there are things you're looking for along the way.
Yeah.
And in that patience.
How long? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said the patience to sit through all of it and be conscientious that something's happening there. There is a reaction happening in this moment.
That's why God let us invent beer for those long days. How long did it take you to learn not to peek under the lid?
Oh man, yeah, right. If you're looking, you're not cooking. I think it took me a few years only because I wasn't sure of the kinds of, I use like the Weber's, just stuff in the backyard. That's one thing I always try to model to our customers is a lot of good barbecue can happen in your backyard. So you just got to get familiar with your tools and how your heat works. And so for me, that it took a few years, even about a year or so, to figure out how my smoker would work. And so that meant I was peaking more than I should be at times.
Okay. All right. That's an honest answer. If you could work with one of your barbecue heroes, who would it be?
Oh man, that's a great one. Honestly, my grandfather passing, I would love to work with him again. I think now that I'm the age that I am, I appreciate what he did and what he modeled. And I would love to just talk, cut meat, make sausages, and using his grinder. Like those are really moments for me that I would love to have back.
There's so much. I don't think you appreciate that when you're 10 years old. I mean, you enjoy being with your grandpa, but
Totally.
when you get a little older and you've got some wisdom and experience, and then you could really go back because you're trying in your brain. This is me. You're trying to remember what your grandpa said or your dad said, and they're gone. And you're what and because there was pearls in there. I guarantee you there was pearls.
Yeah. We take that pork trim and he'd say, he'd cut it off the spare ribs. I'm going to use that for the sausage. And he knew the blend and the texture of making. That's a great example of something that I made with him that I'm like, man. And he had this breakfast sausage. It was like sage and flavor profile. And even to this day, my family's like, Tory, if you can nail that, that would take you to the next level. So I wish I could just have him here and we could do that together.
Well, there you go. So what is Tory Campbell's best day look like as far as activities?
That's great. I love my family. So I have 3 kids, and my wife. My wife and I actually celebrated our 23rd wedding anniversary in December. So family is huge for me. Just spending time with them in the morning. I have a motorcycle, so my dad and brother-in-law will ride sometimes. So if I can get a ride in, that would be great. Obviously, that's spring and summer in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And just being in the backyard too. I keep bees. I try. And garden, have dogs. So real low key, time with family, time with friends, able to decompress. I'm an introvert with social skills, so oftentimes that means having some time away just to chill out, collect, be in my head is also really important to me.
Okay. What is one thing you miss about your 20s?
Man, just that snapback physically. Like,
Right.
I mean, your 20s, you want to get in shape. I mean, just thinking about it, you halfway there.
Yeah.
You ain't even got to go to a gym yet. You just think about it, getting in shape. All of a sudden, things start straightening up. Oh, got that now. I think about it and I add 3 pounds. I'm like, man,
Yeah, I think once you get past that by a couple of miles, the brain synapses is trying to tell you, yeah, nah, it's not working. It's not working. What's your favorite movie?
oh man, this is hard. I'm a sci-fi junkie. So, gosh, I know you're gonna. This is a tough one. Let's just say I love Star Wars trilogy.
Okay.
I can go on and on. I mean, there's so many quirky ones that I can pull up, but I'll just leave it at that. You can't go wrong with that one.
I'll give you $5 if you can guess Leanne's.
You'll never guess it.
I was gonna say,
And no, it's not Beavis and Butthead Go to the Mall.
oh, what's the Patrick Swayze one? Does it?
Roadhouse.
Dirty Dancing?
Yeah. We'll go with Dirty Dancing.
Oh my God. No, I love the movie Amadeus.
Amadeus. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't say that's my absolute favorite, but when somebody asks me, that's what I tell them. It is in my top 10.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mine is either Casablanca or The Godfather. I always thought The Godfather was your introduction to business 101. What's
See, I like Scarface and Reservoir Dogs. They're up there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, this is an obvious question because of what you're wearing there, but I was going to say, are you more sweatshirts or more formal wear?
Yeah, I'd like to be less formal if I can.
Okay.
I
All
can
right.
I can put a suit on and clean up, as they say, if you need to, but
Yeah. I think you clean up pretty good. I've seen you like that. So, when and what do you want to do when and if you retire?
oh, it's great. Definitely travel. Would be important for my wife and I. My wife's El Salvadorian, so we also would love to be able to stay in her home country, 3 to 6 months out the year if possible.
Warm.
Maybe even, similar to my grandparents, like get to a place where the retirement bug has been, satisfied and we want to do something, but it's not because we have to, but it's out of love, whether that be on something entrepreneurial or giving back in a meaningful way of our time and energies to help the next generation.
Good for you. Good for you. What's your favorite sport?
Favorite sport? I'd have to say football.
Good man. Go Beavs.
Go
Okay,
Beavs.
this is the one that always makes people kind of go, huh? What would your last meal be on death row? We don't even have
what?
death row anymore, so
Yeah. I would say I mean there's so much good food out there. I would say I love fruit in its season. Like when it's strawberry season and that's the season, I love it. It tastes good when it's blackberry. So I would say just a big bowl of the ripest fruit in its season at that time. That would, to me, I'd be straight.
That's the healthiest answer we've gotten so far.
That is.
I could have gone a lot of different places, y'all. I mean, chicken and dumplings. I could have had, some beef ribs, but I love fruit in that way.
Well, most people are going, well, if it's my last meal, I guess I don't need to worry about my waistline.
No, that's true. That's true. Yep.
So they do that. Tory Campbell, again, how can people find you?
Yeah. So for our food company, feltonandmarys.com. You can find all of our products in our store. We also, we just got on Amazon in November. So a few of our products are there as well if you'd like to check us out there.
Cool.
Great.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Tory Campbell from Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods and also Oregon State University Alumni Association. Yay.
Yes, sir.
That's the connection, I got to tell you. We really appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time. I know you got to get to work, but I do. And we will continue to check back with you. Okay.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Pleasure.
Take care of you too.
Will do. Thanks for being with us, everybody. For Leanne and myself, we'll be back next week with another edition of After Hours. So remember our motto again, turn it, don't burn it, take care. And one other thing, go out there and be kind.